Everybody's jumping right in.
I don't believe I was at that. Was it October 17th?
You were there.
You
I'll
were
second the
there.
motion, yeah.
No, it wasn't there.
Just at the meeting itself, okay. Any discussion?
I wasn't there.
Yeah, let's do it.
I actually think you may need Mandy to
Yeah.
Yeah,
pass these. You only have two, it's just you and Clyde.
Oh,
So you need Mandy on board.
even though I would make the quorum, right?
Yeah, you should have her. It's just two and five.
So we just hold it to the next.
Yep.
Okay. So we're not passing. Right. And I have a motion to accept the accounts payable up to today, November the 7th.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mary. A second?
Second motion.
Any discussion?
Just, David, just noticed that one of the payroll checks was significantly larger than all the others. There's probably a good reason for that.
Constable's check.
Constable's check.
Yeah.
So I mentioned the last meeting that due to the lower level of Vermont State Police activity that we've had, I've okayed James for additional hours, so he's up for working about 25 hours at this point.
Is that like a monthly reimbursement? Okay.
So how about the stone cleaner for the cemetery? What's that all about?
That was, can't remember his name, one of the older, I shouldn't say that, gentleman on the cemetery committee who's fairly active, came in and had someone that was able to do some cleaning of the stones and paid him just a little bit to do it.
Oh, I thought it said stone cleaner, I thought it was the actual liquid. Okay.
No,
that
what
was
was,
the person.
what, yeah, what,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, sorry.
That's fine, that's fine. And then Vermont Life Safety, is that building inspection or, I thought it was for,
Fire alarms.
Okay, oh, fire alarms,
Dave, the Clay Hill paving project, we have the payment to Blacktop, but is there additional monies for the guardrails?
I'm expecting additional monies for the top layer. So if I recall that, yes, it was about 275, and on the invoice it said base layer,
Okay.
so I'm expecting more.
I wonder how many stones that person did, do you know?
I don't, no, he actually came in and talked to me a while back. I don't think I asked him how many years.
Where? Yeah.
Center Town, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was Center Town Cemetery.
Jim, any additional questions?
No.
Clyde?
No.
All in favor of accepting the accounts payable, say aye.
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 Motion passes. Moving on to adjustments to the agenda. What I would like to do is following the Liquor Control Board session to insert the 17-acre wood before the Route 4 corridor and before the Jenneville Road. So I think Jennifer's here, and it should be just a quick piece. And then add to our agenda, Mary, maybe you could describe what the topic is of the cemeteries.
So one of our residents, former residents, has been trying to get a cemetery plot for a number of years, and it's very hard to determine who owns which cemeteries are closed. We have gotten some information. So I want to make a motion tonight that that person can be buried, or those people can be buried in the Gallop Weed Cemetery.
Okay, great, thank you. I don't know if I need a motion, Dave, for that, or just an announcement. That's what we do.
I think you should do a motion and acceptance of the change of agenda,
Okay.
just to make that official.
I'll make that motion that we add the above adjustments to the agenda.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Moving on to public comments. Are there any public comments on topics other than what are on the agenda? Brian?
Sure. Should I come up or state my name at least?
Sure.
Sure. Brian Straffolino. In the future, if there is a select board meeting prior to an election, it would be helpful if that meeting was upstairs or rescheduled.
Oh, because you needed to set up down here.
Correct.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Brian.
That was okay.
You're gonna be here late tonight?
I am going to come back after the meeting.
Okay, and could I add one more public comment? Brian, thank you for getting everything together as it is, and the volunteers lined up for tomorrow and so on with
Sure.
Pat's help.
I was going to say Pat Richardson helps with the scheduling.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. And I hope everyone has or will vote. Okay.
Apparently we have difficulty with CATV upstairs.
Oh, okay.
It's- So we could
could
probably.
reschedule, or you guys
Yeah, we
could
could
consider
reschedule.
rescheduling.
Yeah.
The elections are set on
Yeah,
the annual
right.
basis.
We're flexible, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to new business, Brian, you're going to introduce the liquor license request.
Sure. I guess I should just stay up.
Just want to make sure you have your pop-up exercise.
Sure. All right. So, here in Hartland, we received a request for a first-class liquor license. It is a new entity or business to town. But before we get into that, I just wanted to bring you guys up to speed with the process that has now changed for liquor licenses. So the Department of Liquor Control has moved their process completely online. There is an online portal that I need to access and approve or disapprove requests for liquor licenses, whether they're first, second, third class, also request for caterer applications. So in the past, there have been paper forms that I would receive, and we are no longer doing that. So there's no more paper forms. Everything has to go through the portal, which means that you all do not need to sign anything. You will need to approve or disapprove, and then pass that information on to me, and then I go in to that online system. And once it moves from our level, on the municipal level, it goes to the DLC for their approval, just like us mailing that form in. But nothing is done via paper, it is all online now. The other bit I wanted to mention is that they are no longer issuing licenses on an annual basis. So previously, the licenses were good from April 1 until May 31. That is no longer going to be the case. It's going to be based on the approval of that business. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get all of the businesses, collect those, and then present all of them. It's going to be based on when those businesses reapply, or in this instance, apply. And then once the DLC approves that, that's when their liquor license starts for a calendar year. And then the DLC will send reminders to those businesses. I forget, I think it's 210 days, 190, 160, 120, 90, 60, 30, 15 days prior to remind people. But the businesses need to apply and reapply through the online portal. I've informed all of those businesses, so they know that it's all online. The DLC has also reached out to all the businesses. So unfortunately, the process has kind of drastically changed.
duration of the license is still 1 year,
Correct,
just different start and end dates.
correct, exactly. It's gonna be based on when that applicant is approved.
Okay,
Um,
okay,
Question,
So,
great.
no question.
For Brian? Yeah.
So we'll still, the select board will still have the approval process.
correct, you will need to approve it on the municipal level, and then I need to
Okay.
execute that decision.
And it comes up every year.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it's not going to be once a year now. It could be 4 different times, depending on what you folks decide for this new applicant. But historically, we've been able to take BG's, Mike's, and the skunk, wait until they all are received, and then present those all at once. And we're not going to be able to do that because there's going to be deadlines for each of those applicants depending on when they renew. Now, the 3 of them very well may renew pretty close to the same time frame that they've been accustomed to, but they may not. They might renew earlier, and then their annual cycle will start before us holding on to them and waiting and approving all 3, and then the DLC approving all 3, if that makes sense.
You got another question?
Sure.
So in all this paperwork we received, I didn't understand this. There was a notice of cancellation for the workers' comp.
So those, because it's a first-time applicant, I shared every document that they shared with the DLC, because it's a first-time applicant. Once they are approved, it's just a renewal process, and we don't need to see that. And the majority of those documents don't actually really apply, because the DLC does the vetting, if you shall. They will go and do the inspection and things of that nature. But I wanted to share everything with you because this is a first-time applicant.
Why is there a notice of,
I don't know that answer. I'm just sharing all the documents that was submitted to the DLC through the online portal.
you know?
So I think,
Because by statute, when you apply for a first-class license, you gotta have like, show ownership of the building or lease agreement, or and you need to show insurance and.
But this is a notice of cancellation, is my point. Cancellation.
I can answer that.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Are you here from White Pine?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I think I probably I actually sent Brian the things separately because they didn't go into the portal and wasn't able to answer them, or view them. So I think I probably sent him the wrong document. That was the notice of cancellation, and then I paid the bill, and then it's
Oh, okay. And what's your name?
Chelsea. See
Oh, you're Chelsea. Oh, okay. All right, thank
For
you.
the case of the hiccups.
I think we're ready to just discuss the request.
yeah, shall I fall back unless you guys have any other questions for me about the process? But beyond
I
that,
don't have any
it's
questions about the process.
it's pretty much
No, I
in
think
your
we're
hands.
set,
So
Brian.
Chelsea, if you wanna.
Yeah. Chelsea, if you would, and family want to come forward? Okay. First, what we need to do is take off our select board hats and put on our official liquor license control.
Local liquor control board.
Local liquor control board. Okay, so you guys saw the difference, right? We just magically changed.
You're
Chelsea,
now,
okay.
you're now local liquor control commission.
Commissioners, okay.
Chelsea, welcome. Congratulations on your business being 2 years old, right? 3?
No, we opened in April, so.
April, okay, in April. And thank you for contributing to our tax base. And I'm also just spent the day at a healthcare conference with the Center for Advancing Rural Health Equity, and I must say that any business in town that is promoting good health and practices is great for us to see, so thank you.
Thank you.
Can you maybe give us a bit of a background as to how or where you are now that's going to, that you're thinking of requesting this license?
Yeah. So we are a hiker-focused bed and breakfast. We have 2 tree houses and a barn in which we rent out the whole barn or individual rooms or beds to it as well, gearing towards people on the Appalachian Trail. With that being said, we are happy to have any kind of guests come. Summertime is definitely our busiest time of year with the hikers coming through, into fall for peaker season as well. So now, stick season upon us, and it's slowing down a bit. We are wanting to do some events. So we are applying for a liquor license, strictly beer and wine, for the sake of dinners. We hope to host things like seasonal dinner events. I do yoga there as well and offer that to any of our guests, and it would be nice to be able to offer yoga to the community and have vinyasa or beer asana, so offer a glass of beer or wine after to bring people in through yoga and then allow the community to get together for a drink as well. We actually had our first harvest dinner last night. We had the Foley brothers came and they pulled their catering license for it. So we were able to do it, have alcohol that way through that. But for that event, we had food from our garden and other local farms. It included beer and wine from the Foley Brothers Company, and they were able to present their product to new people. And it definitely had a nice community feel. You know, we had people come locally for the dinner, some that we knew, some that we did not know. And it was nice to be able to source food as locally as possible and drinks, and just, it felt right to us. It was exciting. And then, let's see, I mentioned that's just beer and wine specific. In doing so, the staff pours all of the drinks. So it's not a free-for-all, you know, we have a limited amount for each guest to have. Last night it was paired with each course. And we are restricted through Act 250 to have 16 guests. So when we have these events, we close off all reservations for everything else and allow 16 guests to join us for dinner.
Okay. Great. That's what I imagined from reading the documents. So are there any questions? Go ahead, Mary.
So I was wondering, I think you just answered my question, but we have this form here, special event versus festival permit. So you're going under special event, is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's definitely not a festival.
Right, right. But I didn't understand it because I thought you were applying for just alcohol, like restaurants serve. But you're talking just not every time you have guests, you're talking about special.
Correct, yes. We don't have it regularly. Through the alcohol licensing too, it's specific to like a certain room or building, however you do it. So we have one room that would be licensed for us to do this in. Through the DLC, I know that they could expand it if we ever wanted to do an outdoor one or something like that. But yes, it's just for these.
So do you serve dinners?
So not normally, it's breakfast, it's
Oh,
bed and
I see.
breakfast, but we want to have more dinner events.
Okay.
So I think that's worth clarification though, because my understanding of reading the documents, and I could be wrong because I've never done this before, is that the first class license is a full-time license. A special event license or permit is a separate entity, it's different. And it's,
So, yeah, and I think to have the special events, you gotta actually have the first class, but, so the permit or the application is for a first class hotel license. But I think what I'm hearing is that you only plan on,
Right, so we would have the permit, technically, we would get the permit for whenever we wanted to have the events. Whereas like a catering event, you have to apply each time to have it.
Right.
So we would have it for,
it would be permanent, valid 365 days.
but I mean, as of now, we're hoping to have maybe a seasonal dinner, you know, each season, and then, you know, yoga with beer, and some events like such, but yes, not regularly.
I love the idea of yoga with beer, but I've never heard of it, and I think it's,
I want to see you stand on one leg after 3 or 4 beers.
Yeah, my partner
The beer comes
teaches
after.
yoga.
yeah, it's a It's very creative.
I want to
Yeah.
text Kate right now, she's teaching at the aquatic center. Clyde, any questions?
Not particularly. The only thing is, I was noticing on your different permits you got, sometimes you're listed in Hartland, and sometimes in Woodstock.
It's a Woodstock mailing address.
I know that, but the state of Vermont, it should say that you're in the Heartland, even though you have a Woodstock mailing address. But that's neither here nor there, because they don't realize that Heartland has 7 post offices that deliver here.
When we do the 911, we'll straighten all that out, right?
Huh.
Okay.
No, really nothing except, that type of thing bugs me from my days of being clerk, that stuff got sent to the wrong town. And I'm sure that information went to Woodstock when your permits were first given.
I don't remember that. I know we've definitely had issues.
Yeah.
with that.
Meaning like the town clerk in Woodstock.
Oh, yeah, the town, I mean,
Okay.
it's not relevant to this, but we've had people taken off our checklist because they had a Woodstock mailing address, and the change of address went to the Woodstock town clerk, so they registered them to vote, and they were still here. But, so,
Jim,
it's a bit
do
confusing.
you have any questions?
Yeah, my question again is partly because, you know, I'm not completely up to date here, but I know you have an Act 250 permit.
Mhm.
It says you're a bed and breakfast.
Yes.
It doesn't say that you're, you know, either a restaurant or a tavern or anything else. So it's not clear to me whether
When we,
they should ask for a jurisdictional opinion from Act 250 from District 3 to see if this constitutes a change in use on item 6.
Right, and we did do that research, and the answer is that
Who
this is
did that research?
Jim Barlow, our lawyer. our
But
town
he
lawyer.
specifically researched Act 250,
Well, I think,
or he gave a general opinion on the select board's role.
So I did do a follow-up question, Jim, to Jim, regarding, you know, the dinner and the meals, et cetera. And I did get to the Act 250 question. And his response is that, does not recommend denying a first-class license on the premise that the applicant needs an Act 250 permit, or an amendment.
Well, I'm not suggesting we deny
No,
based on that.
Yep. so I'll just finish. So,
Yeah, sorry.
in a nutshell, his opinion is that you are the liquor control board, the local liquor control board. You have oversight over issuing a liquor license. Factoring in Act 250 and whether that really affects her Act 250 permit is outside the scope of issuing the liquor license. So his recommendation is it's not jurisdictional to this commission, and that to basically deny or to even recommend, you know, doing something in anticipation or even looking at Act 250 is not germane to
Okay,
issuing a
are you
liquor
going to
license.
submit that to us for review?
and I'll say too, when we did go through Act 250, we did, and you can see online, on the Act 250 database, that we had said that we were going to have events as well. So that was part of our permitting process.
that's an information. Okay. You ready? for a
Yeah,
motion?
yeah. Wait a second.
Well, I mean, you know, another thing I think we should consider is, you know, what precedent are we setting the town as a whole? You know, does anyone who has, you know, can anyone who wants to have an at-home business now have, you know, a tavern in their bar? And I think the other thing to consider is really impact on abutters. So I'm not saying, yeah, you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that it's worth understanding and getting some clarification.
Well, I think
Jim, as
if-
I read the statute, Chelsea and her husband would have the responsibility for controlling the people that are drinking at her establishment. We do not go to the abutters of Skunk Hollow Tavern or Mike's or Bugee's to ask their opinion every year about things. So if I read the statute correctly, and understand Jim Barlow's interpretation of it, we would, it would be brought to our attention that there was an issue, and then we could hold, try to resolve it, or then hold some sort of hearing, and then at the next renewal process, put stipulations and conditions on the license. So I think that's.
But would you be open to stipulations or conditions today that said you had a limited number of events per year? I'm sorry, Chelsea, would you be open to conditions today that stipulated you would be limited to a certain number of events per year?
Yes.
I think that's outside of our purview. I don't think we have any business putting that on there, and I think that would be challenged legally and rightfully so. I think it's up to us to either grant this or not grant it. And Act 250, you know, they're the ones who said, yes, you can have events, and so they're the authority over that. And I think they've done a lot to conform to Act 250, and I would just like to make the motion. And then if you want further discussion, after I make a motion, somebody seconds it, we can discuss it some more. How about that?
Well, I think we've covered it. So,
I'm sorry, Jim?
I think we've covered the main points, so.
Okay, you think we have? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, unless, make a motion. and
Well, I don't want to, I'm
anyone
not,
else has-
I want to make a motion. What I'm trying to articulate is I don't want to cut off discussion.
Right.
All right, so, but I'd like to make a motion that the select board grant Wise Pines LLC permission for, or what's the wording? Approval for their first-class hotel liquor license application. Diane? Okay, thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any additional discussion?
I think it sounds great. I like what you're doing, and I hope you're very successful.
Thank you so much.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Against?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Okay.
So Jen, I told Nikki between 6 and 6:15,
Yeah, I did.
depending on how late that was gonna go, but Lindsay is online. and,
Lindsay is online, okay. She was gonna present what we were talking about.
Charlie, if you could bring Lindsay Perkins into presenter mode, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Okay, the topic at hand is the 17-acre wood.
The Pooh there? Is Winnie the Pooh there?
I think they're still there.
That's what we're thinking of.
Okay. Jennifer, do you want to introduce it, or will?
Yeah, actually, I think Lindsay was gonna take the lead for a change, so I'm not always the one who's talking.
Mhm.
That is correct. Well, that's great news. Jennifer, anything to add?
No, I just am pleased that the school has been able to do their part, so I'm not sure where the town was going to pull those funds, but, and I'm not sure what motion we need to make, but the schools definitely stood up their part, and they have raised $186,000 so far, so this will give us complete funding going forward, once we get the other 10,000 and the school's 10,000.
Great. I think that was our discussion a few weeks ago. When we
Yeah, it
had
was
that.
September 6th, I think.
Mary has a
So
question.
I have a question for you, Lindsay. Why isn't the school tapping your ARPA funds? We were led to believe that there's quite a bit of ARPA funds that the school had received.
That's correct. And at the time, when the overage came in, we discussed with Christine and the other members of the school 17-acre committee about that, and she said the ESSER funds had been decided on quite a while ago. Was her discussion about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I believe this 10,000 was gonna come from ARPA funds.
That's
So I
what
think
your
that, yeah,
intention.
the motion should be to allocate $10,000 of our ARPA monies for
Okay.
the school project, for the 17-acre wood school project.
Could I get a motion to,
I'll make a motion that we use $10,000 of our ARPA funds to fund the 17-acre wood school trail project.
is there a second?
A second.
Okay, any additional discussion?
I'm just thrilled this is going to be done.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
we are too.
yeah, it's great.
Is that your standard line tonight?
Yes, it is.
You're very excited about projects tonight.
Ever since she found out she can have beer and yogurt, she's thrilled.
Hold on, we can't take the wind out of Nikki Buck's. Nikki Buck has her hands up, so Charlie,
Okay.
Wednesday, there's a fundraiser, you could do beer and yoga on the new
I know.
walkway through the 17-acre wood. I've seen stand-up paddleboard, okay, back to, all in favor, say aye.
Was you say Nikki had something?
Yeah,
Nikki wants to
Nikki,
say something.
Nikki, you're, if you
Sorry.
unmute yourself, or, there you go. You can.
Yes.
Thanks, Vicki.
Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Jennifer, for
Thank you,
doing the legwork.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, you're welcome, Lizzie. Okay,
Thank you, Lindsay. She can, you can put her back in the attendee place, back in the box.
shut it down. Next is a presentation about upcoming work on the route, called the Route 4 Corridor Study.
Hi, good evening.
Copy of this presentation.
Could you introduce yourself again?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. My name is Matthew Orencio. I am a planning manager at V.S.A and our planning policy and research division. And I am conducting this study, which is called the Route 4 Corridor Plan. It's primarily an outreach effort to understand community needs and concerns along the Route 4 corridor. I have a larger construction project that's going to be coming on the corridor in the future. So I wanted to take a moment of your time today to briefly introduce this project and ask for a little help with outreach, hopefully if you would let me do so at the end of the project. So very happy to be here tonight, and thank you for a moment of your time.
You're welcome, and thanks for driving all the way down.
Oh yeah, sure. I have personal ties to this region, just visiting it frequently, so I'm always happy to come back and be around here. So very happy. And just as a side note as well, I'm the planning manager responsible for working with the Two Rivers Ottaquiche Regional Commission. And so I work closely with Rita Zito and the group over there as well. So really happy to continue with that work and meet you all here today as well.
Great.
So I'll take a moment of your time just to briefly introduce this plan, what we intend on accomplishing with this plan. And then I'll just go through this presentation. And then afterwards, happy to answer any questions that you might have. And we can go from there. So without further ado, I'll just briefly walk you through this presentation and we can go from there. So to start off, a corridor plan at V.S.A, these types of projects are outreach efforts to solicit community needs and concerns ahead of a larger construction effort. So typically, a larger construction effort in this regard would be a slab removal and roadway reconstruction. And given that's a big opportunity in a large project, it's also an opportunity to figure out if there are things that we can fix along the way. And so that's the reason I'm here today, is to introduce how we get about and how we identify those things that we need to fix as part of this larger construction project, which is a corridor plan. And so there's a typical step-by-step process that we follow here. You can see in the design here, a little bit of outreach, a little bit of background research. That's what this presentation is about, to make sure how the agency, how I understand this area is how you view it. And if I'm missing anything, I'd love to hear about it. Partner research, so thinking about with whom I need to speak to understand more about this plan and about this area. And then finally, some public outreach to understand needs and concerns about the Route 4 corridor in general. And then that will culminate in collecting those needs and concerns, documenting them, sharing them back with stakeholders, and then enshrouding that document, making sure that that's in the appropriate hands of agency project managers ahead of that larger reconstruction project. And so moving to the next slide, slide 3, we have a map. It's a bit of a wonky map, but it just shows you the extent of the corridor. The corridor, roughly speaking, is going from the Class 1 Town Highway in Hartford to the Class 1 Town Highway in Woodstock. And so if you want to think about it more, let's just say driving the corridor, it would be from the White River Junction food co-op stores to the Ace Hardware store. So essentially that large stretch of the Route 4 corridor. Moving to the next page, it kind of breaks down the corridor in greater detail. You all already know this corridor, but just to kind of, again, provide some baseline inputs and things that need to be considered as part of this project. It's 13.4 miles of corridor, 3 towns that are a part of this, so I am also talking with your counterparts, the town of Hartford and the town of Woodstock. I've been in close contact with our District 4 maintenance crews to understand their needs and their concerns and what they've seen on the corridor so far. And then there are a few different things to consider. The Ottauquechee River and the river valley here obviously has a major impact on that roadway. The interstate entrance exit ramps at exit 1 are definitely a major node of activity and something to be considered as part of this. There is a formal rail line that runs parallel to the Route 4 corridor, which is always an interesting kind of infrastructure question as well. And this all kind of encapsulates and needs to be understood as part of this wider reconstruction project that's being envisioned for the Route 4 corridor. And so I gave you the project ID down here, the Woodstock-Hartford NH long series of numbers and digits. And that's from the Class 1 town highway in Woodstock to the I-89 northbound map. And what that will be is a reconstruction project along this corridor. I do not have a timeline and a timeline for that, nor a scope for that yet. It's still being very much defined by the agency. I've been told in the next 10 years. So let's just say it's farther out there because there is a substantial amount of scoping work and design work that needs to go into such a complex corridor, given all those needs that I've laid out before you. So it might be less than 10 years, but just to give you a heads up that since this is a complex and large corridor, it will take some time to design this. But ahead of such a large reconstruction effort, the idea is to at least gather community concerns, keep track of community concerns so that they can be funneled into the project here. Please let me know if I'm going too fast too.
I'm just a little confused on the timeline.
Yeah.
You broke the project into the remaining part of the project, from where you ended this past summer out to the Route 5, Route 4 junction. And is one 10 years out, or was the whole thing 10 years out?
So that was a repaving that was just done this season.
Yes.
Just to respond to immediate concerns.
Right.
But that is completely separate from this larger reconstruction project, which is longer term.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
Well, is this project that we're talking about tonight the one that's 10 years out?
Yeah, so 10 years that's like, please don't take that as the hard and fast number.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
just like, let's say long-term, longer term for this project.
I'll hold my
So,
question.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
You say reconstruction, that you widen or just?
That is certainly something that's on the possibilities.
So design is unclear.
Design is unclear, but the idea would be slab removal, wider shoulders if possible. Given the geographic constraints, that's something that, in part I'd like to hear about here tonight, like what and how people use the corridor now and how it might be better used in the future.
How much of this corridor, if any, is actually in Hartland?
It's a very smaller percentage of it, I would say, right by the Route 12 intersection. It's almost a very small corner of the town that comes up that way, but it's still important to come here and talk to you about, obviously. So,
Probably less than a mile.
yeah, less than a mile probably, to be quite honest. But
So I have a couple things. I think we're all impacted by it because of Route 4. I always think of Route 4 as kind of dangerous,
Mhm.
actually. And then the second thing, so I'm glad you're possibly going to be able to do something about that. So on our local listserv, there's a very active Hartland Energy Committee member who's an avid bicyclist. And coincidentally, he wrote a long opinion on the listserv just like today or yesterday about traffic concerns, broadening shoulders. And my thought was, we really don't have anything to do with that because, Route 5, we don't own that. That's a state thing. I think what else did he mention? He mentioned Route 12. Oh, yeah, sorry, Route 12. And so how could he funnel his concerns to you?
I would say two ways. To cut to the chase, my contact information is here. I'd be happy to kind of talk to him.
Oh, okay.
There's also going to be an online survey that I'd asked that you distribute to your constituents. I'm going to upload the link in the coming days, share it with Dave, share it with Two Rivers, and my goal is to get as many people as possible to comment on that. And so that asks questions about safety along the corridor, what people are observing now, and what they would want to see in the future.
Right.
So that'd be about a 20-minute survey online.
And Mary, you just have, under the planning, you do have the pedestrians in this.
You are, and how about bicyclists? Because this guy's an avid bicyclist and he's thinking, more people will be biking, and is the state taking that thought into consideration.
We'd love to hear about how people are using it from a biking standpoint. It's my sense that there is a larger biking community, or there's a biking community that's out here using the corridor. From photos that I've seen and times I've been out here, speaking to the two chambers of commerce around here, so down in Hartford and also in Woodstock, I get the sense that folks try to direct people to avoid Route 4 as much as possible, but inevitably people end up on Route 4. And so I think it's just I think we're bound, if not already, we will see more folks on Route 4 in the future, and there are already folks using it. And I'd just love to get a sense of how that's being used right now, and which sections people are riding on, if any, because again, it
I
becomes
can
a
answer that.
Yeah, you're a cyclist.
Yeah.
I used to commute to Hanover 2 or 3 times a week. And I would go out the Hartland Road, and I could not use from there until beyond the interstate exits, and that's the only time that there's actually any sort of, not even a 3-foot shoulder, it's a minimum. I'm appalled some mornings when I'm driving that I see some happy cyclists in the driving lane, because there is no breakdown lane, there is no, the white line doesn't even exist in some places on the side. So I think, to Jim's comment, I'm very cognizant that the road itself is kind of precarious as far as berms on one side and drop-offs on the other, but anything that could be done to increase the safety of cyclists, because inevitably people come to the area and they say, oh, let's ride to Killington, and they just hop on Route 4 thinking it's safe, and it's far from it.
Yeah, no, that's great feedback, and that's exactly the type of feedback I'm looking as part of this, and about that trade-off too, right? So if you get wider shoulders, what might that, well, in theory, cost, but then also at the same time, do wider shoulders require slightly narrower travel lanes then? And what does that impact? So thinking about those trade-offs, if you will.
To the credit of V-Trans, there are signs if someone was cycling the whole corridor to say get off here, but I don't know why they don't pay attention, or they start somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, okay, back to your
No, I mean, this is great, so I'm happy to kind of like field questions as we go here. The next section here is about traffic volumes. I think this tells a story that you're all already aware of, and really I'm here just to confirm that this is, from you all, if this is what you see as well. So this is just me going by the numbers, but, so first with the annual, the first table here is the annual average daily trips, and you'll see it follows a pattern pretty stable from 2017 to 2019, plunges in 2020, and now is making its way back up to previous numbers. So that's where we're at in terms of annual trips and annual average trips. Monthly has a very interesting picture, and it speaks to lots of different folks using Route 4 corridor for a lot of different things, I would say. It really kind of, we have the summertime peak, then it kind of drops off in October to November, stick season, and then picks up there from like December, moving back forward to the summertime peak. So, thinking about, that speaks to a lot of different things. That speaks to winter traffic for tourism, that speaks to daily work here, it speaks to folks living on the corridor, but it's just a busy corridor throughout the year, and it does experience that tourist cycle, which should be noted. And the same thing for the daily and hourly traffic too. We see daily traffic increasing throughout the week, with a crescendo on Friday being the busiest day, which is kind of interesting. And then decreasing on the weekend. So again, thinking about people sprinting here perhaps during the weekend, along with commercial vehicle traffic perhaps making its way through the corridor, trying to make final destinations. Lots of different stories that you could have with that one number. And then what I think is interesting too here is the average hourly, which rather than having a peak in the AM and a peak in the PM, just kind of peaks here at around 4 p.m. and decreases shortly thereafter. And so that tells a story of, again, a corridor that's being used thoroughly throughout the day, and a need that needs to be considered as part of any possible redesign. So, this is to put this data out before you. These are the type of data that are reviewed by V-Trans engineers to understand how people are using the corridor right now. So I just wanted to get a sense from you all if this is a narrative that you agree with, or if there's something that's missing from these data. But just another piece of the puzzle here.
I would only add that during ski season, Sunday afternoon, it's near impossible to exit the Hartland Road onto Route 4, or try to cross Route 4. Just a steady line of cars coming from the ski slopes, and the same on Friday evening. It's a steady stream.
And October. October foliage weekend.
Oh,
Across there.
but the foliage weekends do show here. Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm putting this all out in front of you right now. If you would like to have a subsequent conversation, by the way, I'm happy to have a subsequent phone call and stuff. I know I'm providing a lot here, but just to set the stage for this effort. And the next thing I wanted to talk about here is crash history. This map shows, it's a heat map that shows concentrations of high crash locations, and 4 specific locations are on here that are in the Route 4 corridor specifically that we're looking at. So the first one is the intersection of Route 12. The second one, which we just heard here, is Waterman Hill Road and the Hartland Road intersection, the Quechee Gorge Bridge, and then the I-89 ramps. So of these intersections, the one that I see, just from my experience, I seem to be tapping into as a possible need here. What we could explore as part of the study, for example, for a traffic signal is perhaps at Waterman Hill Road, Hartland Quechee Road intersection, right? So if that's something that's warranted, I'm happy to hear it and discuss more with you all. If that seems like a busy enough intersection to take a second look at, that's something I'm happy to discuss. You know, the other intersections here, you know, or the other locations here, Quechee Gorge Bridge, if you look at the traffic and the crash reports for that, they tend to be fender bending. So it's really just, you know, tourism traffic and people not knowing where they are and kind of bumping into each other. But there's a lot more broadsiding at that Waterman Hill Road, Hartland Quechee Road intersection, which to me, in any case, speaks to the need to discuss with our engineers, discuss as part of this wider project, perhaps a traffic signal or safety improvements. And so, just want to bring that.
There is a blinking light at intersection 2 today. And I think it's the old adage, red people stop, but the yellow people speed up.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's also the alignment of that intersection too, the way the roadways kind of are aligned or not square at the intersection, so there's a bit of confusion about maneuvers and who turns when and how. So I see a little bit of confusion at that intersection too, which might contribute to some of the issues that we're seeing in terms of crashes and what have you. And so just something to keep in mind.
Well, those center line rumble stripes are great, especially if you have a husband who drifts over the yellow line.
Well, they were put in after there were fatalities on the road. We went through an awful lot of fatalities prior to 2018, I think 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, yeah. They're really good.
So just moving on as well, and we're fast approaching the end here, so I just want to, you know, be cognizant of your all's time. So the next, commercial vehicles are a discussion on this corridor as well. There are about 11% of the average annual daily trips are commercial vehicles. And this is something that seems to have increased during the time, you know, specifically like from 2017 to 2021. And that's something that I've observed too on multiple site visits here. There's a lot of truck traffic coming through the town and the towns here. So
what does that line mitigated through geometric changes mean?
So that's planarese for saying that we restripe the roadway to make it easier for trucks to turn.
Oh. Thank you. Jennifer, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's just interesting. Actually, I know it's your area within AOT is in here, but your contact information is in here, so maybe you can tell us. But that, I think the constriction and then the opening and the constriction and the opening about these different sections of Route 4 are kind of part of the problem because, you know, Phil and I and others try to cross that Waterman and Hartland Quechee thing fairly often, and it's kind of hell. But but I think part of the problem too is that people have come through the constricted area of Quechee Gorge and then they open up as they're getting out, and the road widens up. There's less constriction. It's like next to the road, so it's having some sort of consistent traffic calming. I mean, I think restriping lanes so they're smaller and getting a little bit more, if it's not going to be bikes, which I don't think bikes should be on Route 4, but just because it's horrible. It's not safe at this point, even with a bigger shoulder. But I think if anything, if you tried to widen it in the places where it's really constricted, it'll just make people go faster like they do when they get past Vince and they just take off. So something it has helped to restrict to lower the speed limit, you know, and the skinny part by the Queechee Village, what's it called now? Queechee Shops, Antique Mall. By that area. Timber Village, thank you, whatever it was called. That part people have watched and actually do slow down there. So bringing that speed limit down has really helped in that section quite a bit. So having some kind of consistency and traffic calming measures versus trying to think about ways to get more elbow room where there just is not more elbow room.
And it's interesting because it's a competing, it's not competing, but it's an interesting conversation because if you widen the roadway to create slightly wider shoulders for cyclists.
We'll go faster.
People go faster, exactly. So like there are ways to visually narrow through restriping and what have you, but so it's that kind of balance that we're seeking to find as part of this project, so that's very valuable input, and I appreciate you saying that. So just to say that commercial vehicles are something that have to be planned for as part of any work on this corridor and might restrict or constrict what we can and cannot do in terms of balancing out the needs with other roadway users. Some problems just to keep in mind, and I'll kind of breeze through these slides again just to be respectful of your all time. But erosion, repeat damages to the roadway in light of erosion, those are all issues, structural issues that need to be considered. So that really gets to these next two slides here. Very deep culverts, not so much in your section of the roadway, but more at the eastern end in Hartford. You know, there are culverts that can be up to 50 feet deep with 50 feet of fill. That's a lot to consider from a maintenance standpoint, how to access that. So again, something to consider as part of the planning process. I briefly identified the other projects that are going along in the corridor, just with the project manager that you can keep track of. There are two at the US 4, US 5 intersection. One is going to do a resurfacing with installation of traffic calming. So that's the first project. And then the second is going to be the installation of a roundabout. And so you see the timelines for those projects here as well. I mentioned them because they are within the limits of this corridor study, so just to be aware of other V-Trans projects. On the next page, page 12, you'll see an example of what those geometric changes are slated to look like at that intersection, US 4, US 5. The next project that you'll see along this corridor is the rehabilitation of the the Queechee Gorge Bridge, which is slated to be in construction next year. So that will be mostly under deck work, but you might see some work on the above deck as well. And then moving forward.
Is the Queechee Gorge Bridge, how historic is that? Was that the original?
That's a great question.
That's the railroad bridge,
I thought so, yeah.
1916, I think, 1912.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it needs a little love, is essentially what it comes down to.
The first bridge inspected after the one collapsed in Minneapolis, and
Yeah.
probably the strongest bridge on the highway system. That's okay.
Quite a few sections of the old rail bed are actually Route 4, which is why Route 4 feels weird. Sometimes it wasn't designed as a road, it's following an old rail bed, so it's sort of flat and not, it doesn't have like, you know, sort of banked curves and stuff.
And
That's weird.
that old rail bed, you can see actually parallel to the roadway at that point.
Only from Queechee to Woodstock.
Right.
From Queechee to Hartford, till you get out to like the motels in Hartford, it follows the rail bed.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
So so one of our residents campaigned for years to get suicide prevention on that bridge. And I think that's going in with this, or is it already there?
It's already there.
It's already there, but
Yeah.
wasn't it temporary, or they were gonna improve it or something?
You know, I can find additional information out about this, the bridge rehabilitation project. It was my understanding that's more under deck work, but if you want, I can reach out to the project manager and confirm just the scope of
That's
the work.
okay, does anybody remember that?
Yeah, well, I just saw the woman today,
Yeah.
whose son, unfortunately,
Yeah,
jumped. There is a tall fence so that someone can't easily jump over. And there are 2 emergency kind of call boxes or help boxes, one on either side of the bridge for anyone who's wants some help at the last moment before.
So that is completed then?
That's been there for a few years.
Yeah, I just thought that was,
Yeah, I think you're right. I thought they were gonna put vertical, just not without all the fencing. They were just gonna have vertical curved, you know, pieces that were gonna go up and so that people would be able to see more of the
Yep.
gorge between them, but you couldn't climb up and you couldn't climb
Well,
through
they did
them.
leave
That's what I
holes in
thought
the
the
fence
final
so you
was.
could take a picture.
There are holes in the fence for pictures, yeah. I don't know anymore.
There are also pedestrian safety improvements at either of the entrances to the bridge being installed as part of that bridge rehabilitation project, so that, you know, folks walking to the bridge are not gonna have to walk adjacent to oncoming vehicles and what have you.
well, they walk right across.
Right, right.
It's really I think that's why the fender benders happen too.
Yeah.
People walk right out.
Well, they think they're Dartmouth students.
Yeah, right.
The classic for me is someone stops right in the middle of the bridge to take a picture. You know,
Another vendor bender. And then the final project here, just to round things up for you all, is the repaving project that you already saw this fall. So getting to next steps here, and what I came here to ask for help with, provided you're willing to give it to me. First is just, you know, we've kind of talked a little bit about your existing concerns. The conversation doesn't stop here. If you have concerns that you hear of, you're welcome to contact me. We can talk about them a little bit now. Also, other groups you would like me to speak with. You know, I come here tonight to search for additional contacts to get the message out about the outreach for this. And just kind of to feel out where folks are in terms of, you know, what additional projects, if any, might be requested as part of this. What is the state of bicyclists and pedestrians on the corridor? Do we see a lot of them? Not so many. Really curious to hear about just that activity and how it should be considered as part of this work. Future development that you would like me to be aware of, that's another question. And then so finally my timeline here, just to make sure you're aware of that. There are no hard and fast rules for this timeline because it's literally me, the project manager, so I'm an army of one. So I'm the one that once you see the online survey, once you see any of the online materials, this presentation is literally me doing all of this. And so just to say that this timeline is subject to slight modifications, but it's what I'm adhering to right now. So I began just by talking to the RPC TAC in July, getting a list of contacts, and beginning my more kind of concerted outreach here right now, September through November, coming to talk to you, talking to the other towns, the chambers of commerce. My goal is to deploy the online survey starting this week. So that will be online through November and extended into December if we need to as well. So a good month and a half, if not more. If it seems like we want it out there more, we can certainly, I can certainly extend it as long as I need to. And then tabulating the survey, reviewing what folks say, and reporting that back out as part of this outreach study in the springtime. So January, or let's say early 2023. So those might be subject to slight shifts, again, based off of my own capacity, but I am trying my best to adhere to this timeline right now. And so all that to say, what you can expect in the coming days is a request email from me with a link to the survey. I'll send that to Dave.